Well, all right. So we're wait till we get a quorum here, but we have another minute or so for Richard. I don't know for sure if Aaron is going to be joining us. I think he said he was going to try, but he might be on call. So we'll see. How's everybody doing? You all set for Santa? If you celebrate the holidays?
Getting there.
Yeah, I'm not ready, but I'm getting there. I'm very excited. My daughter is going to be visiting. We're going to rendezvous in San Diego, and she's coming in from Australia. I have not seen her for 2 years, so very exciting stuff.
That is exciting. Yes.
Yeah.
I think my cousins are going to get to visit their daughter in Australia too.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's just they're just starting to be. They even the other day announced that they would be allowing relatives of residents, permanent residents, or citizens of Australia to visit. If you were a parent or a step parent or even an in-law, like a father-in-law or mother-in-law. So they, I think, have realized. I think there were even protests by some of the people because they couldn't see their family, for quite a long time. So anyway, on a happy note, though. Should be a lot of fun.
I don't think my cousins have even met their grandson.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we don't have any grandchildren yet. That would have made it even harder. But still, even though my daughter is, what is she? I think she's 32. Still the baby bird, as we call her.
The heater's off a little bit. Just sleep down there if you need to.
All right, there's Diane. I see Richard and Tom, and so and Aaron. Okay, I think we have a quorum. I'm gonna give Diane a chance to settle in, and then we'll call the meeting to order.
I'm finishing my dinner, so I'll hide my image periodically.
No problem. I'm brewing my tea, my post-dinner tea here while we get settled. We have a pretty good agenda here tonight. I think we'll.
I'm just turning into planning commission, so
probably take us 12 hours, but we'll see how we rock and roll here.
And then I'll talk to you tomorrow night. Is that good? Okay. Yeah, or call me in the morning or at lunchtime. Yeah. Or you could call me at 8:30 or 9 tonight. I'll be done by then. I gotta go. Love you. Ducks are you. Bye.
Love you too. There she is. There she was.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like the gang's all here. We're
Okay.
ready to rock and roll. Ho, ho, ho. Happy December, everybody. So I'm going to call the December 15th City of Trinidad Planning Commission meeting to order, and maybe we can begin with a roll call.
Sure. Commissioner Kelly.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Stockness.
Present.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
And Commissioner Heikkinen.
Here.
Is he the crab?
Here.
He's
What was
the
that,
crab.
Diane?
Is he the crab?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so before we go to the approval of the minutes, which is the next item on the agenda, I just wanted to very quickly mention the city council meeting last night that I attended. One of the things I wanted to pass along to the commissioners was the very positive comments about the general plan. Trevor may have some comments about that in the staff report, or may want to add on to these comments. But I just wanted to mention that council and actually, Richard, I believe you were on the call as well. So I thought it was great to hear Councilman West describe the work that the Planning Commission has done on the general plan as a remarkable job. The mayor said he's feeling really good about it. And there was an agreement to expedite getting the conservation and open space and the circulation elements to the city council kind of ASAP. We've already kind of completed those. And so Trevor offered to get them to them as a holiday gift. And so they could review those and by January, I believe, get them to in the January meeting. Anything, Richard or Trevor, you wanted to add to that? Anything you noticed about that discussion about the general plan? I just thought I wanted to pass along the kudos to the team.
No, I think you've covered it, although the one topic that you haven't covered is your appointment to the city council. And congratulations on that. Certainly, they will get the benefit of your experience and knowledge, and I think that's an outstanding position for you to be in. Unfortunately, that will put us in a position where we will have to then see if we can find someone inside the city limits that will take your place, which is not going to be possible, but at least attempt to take your place. So congratulations, and we'll look forward to many comments and questions and discussions over the next period in terms of your position on the city council. So that's great. Thank you. Thank you for stepping up.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And yes, and that was the other thing I needed to mention. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, I caught it on access. Trevor really nailed it on a lot. It was just really fun to see how well the Planning Commission's received. If you get a chance, please check it out. You know, it was fun to watch, fun to listen to.
Yeah, you were cutting out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of it. That you two thought that there were some very positive comments about the general plan. Tom, is that what you were saying?
I was warm.
Gosh,
Like, how does it look so great? Can you not hear me?
No, you were cutting out. We're hearing part of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, it just sounded wonderful. I was tempted to go look up that. And like, did Trevor do something else? I mean, it's crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, Trevor's the star of that show. Explaining, to some complex material, again and again, and to, new people and to people maybe that aren't as familiar with it takes a good a level of patience and a very strong ability to kind of break it down into layman's terms, and it really helps push it forward. So, and just, speaking of the city council, and then we'll move on with tonight's agenda. So I have not been officially appointed. I'll be sworn in January. I guess that's the right way to put it. So until I'm sworn in, I can continue to chair the Planning Commission tonight. I wasn't really sure of the process that we go through. And I don't know if you know, Trevor, I didn't hear back from Eli yet. If we talk about that tonight, or I believe that may need to be agendized, or maybe Richard, I believe we need to agendize that or not.
Yeah, we usually agendize voting for a new chair and vice chair. So I will put that on the January meeting agenda.
Okay.
And I recall that the city changed the ordinance, so it doesn't have to necessarily be a new person, but I will confirm that. I think we followed through and did that. I hope so.
Okay. And I am, talking to various people to see if I can find someone to, kind of help replace myself. The other thing is, it's not as easy as you might think. The other thing I wanted to mention, just on a positive note about it, is the fact that the general plan elements are going to the city council. And I think it's going to be helpful to have the experience that I've had on the planning commission as I'm on the city council to help kind of, move those through. So I'll do my best. And I think that way all the hard work you guys have done, or we've done, can come to fruition. So anyway, that's the optimum state. All right. So I guess we'll move on. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Stockness.
Yeah, we're counting on you, Cheryl, to move the general plan and, to see if the council people have read the plan and have some thoughts. And then, when I saw on the agenda that, vegetation was on the following or an agenda item in the future. So perhaps we can get some of the council members to do this walk around,
Okay.
because I'm going to bring that up again tonight. But congratulations. I'm not real excited, but I know you'll get them moving.
Thank you. Thanks. I know.
We'll try to find somebody. I think Aaron and Gabe are on it. They've been kind of they see people now and then, and I think they've got some ideas, or some people have said something, so that'd be good.
Yeah.
But it'd be good if we could get another town person besides Aaron and I. Okay.
Yeah, and I've also requested to be the liaison to the planning commission from
good.
the city council, but they'll have to agree to that, of course. But I put that in my letter of application, so that way I could continue to come to the meetings and just add kind of bring information back and forth and any questions, and maybe that'll help facilitate.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because a lot of times they get the information and they don't have the background. And we've worked for hours and hours and months doing these things. Okay. Thank you.
That's right. Exactly. And then it's all new, fresh to them. All right. The first thing we have on our agenda tonight is approval of the minutes from November 17th. And so I'm going to start with commissioners' comments, and then I'll see if there are any public comments about those minutes. So any questions or comments about the November 17th minutes?
I just had very, very minor on page 2, just maybe a search and replace on the document for the spelling of my last name. In the second to last paragraph, it's E-N-A-N instead of E-N-E-N. I don't know how important that is for the record, but that's all.
Got it. Yes, we'll make that change. Other questions or comments? I reviewed them and I didn't see anything glaring myself, so. Anyone else? Commissioner Stockness, you're on mute, Diane. Oh, there you
Trevor, do you give the council an update on the general plan and whatever we talk about, the ADU or the whatever's on our agenda? Do you give them an update at each meeting?
No, I don't attend council meetings unless I have an agenda item.
Okay.
There was at one point, we had a planning commission liaison. I think Richard had that position for a while, where he would attend the council meetings and provide a brief update. There is a section for a staff report, and the city manager does a written staff report. I could suggest that maybe we include a planning staff report as well, and then someone doesn't necessarily have to attend the meeting.
All right, I see no other comments then on the minutes. Let me just open to public comments. Are there any public comments? And we're discussing the November 17th minutes. Okay, I see no public comments, so I'll bring it back to the commissioners. Is there other further comments or motion to approve? Yes, Commissioner Stockness.
So Trevor, does the city engineer read any of these minutes?
No.
Okay, might be a good idea now and then to alert him because we talk about him, and then that way he would see, oh, maybe he should, has he done an update on Verizon or did he have anything he would want to add? And I'm just thinking, if Cheryl now is on the council, she can be the liaison, for us, the planning commission and the council. And I'm just thinking, we're trying to do so much. And I've never seen him. I think I saw him once and I have some questions for him, but I don't know. Maybe that's
so we could invite him, depending on what the agenda is. Well, you could invite him in the future, depending on the agenda. And then in terms of the liaison to the planning commission, that will be, the city council has to agree to it. But if they did agree to it and I was the person chosen, then I probably would attend the meetings and summarize the topics that were discussed by the planning commission and then report back to the city council in that section of the meeting where they, just like we do, where we ask for different, updates like the committees and so forth.
Yeah, because I've asked a lot of questions about the building inspector and the city engineer. Does he go to the council meetings?
No, again, not unless there's a specific agenda item. However, we do coordinate outside the meeting. So,
right.
So I'll send the engineer and the building official and others. I send them a referral when I get a project. So they see the plans and they comment. And so we did include that in the Verizon approval. And then once the approval happens, I also send the building official and city engineer a copy of the approved plans and conditions of approval so that they do know what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. Second by Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The minutes are approved unanimously. And we are going to move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. Any suggestions or suggested changes to the agenda tonight? I'm seeing heads shaking no. Okay. I have no changes. Richard, you're okay with it?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
All right. I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The agenda for tonight's meeting is approved. And so with that, we're going to move to items from the floor. So at this time, we ask members of the public if they would like to speak on topics that are not on tonight's agenda, up to, around 3 minutes. And pursuant to the Brown Act, the commissioners may not be able to respond in detail to those comments. Are there any items from the floor this evening? All right, I see no items from the floor, so we're going to rocket right into our tonight's agenda, and that will be the general plan update. And this is the continued discussion from the November 17th meeting on the community design element. So I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to bring us up to date and go from there.
Thank you. So I updated the element based on our discussions at last month's meetings. I pointed out there were some policies in there that have a whole list of guidelines, and we talked a little bit at the last meeting about trying to reduce redundancy and try and combine some things. So I did some work on that. If you look at the lighting was one of those, and 5.1 And so I took out the list of guidelines. I combined some of them. I made a couple their own policies because that was language that had been recommended in the circulation element by the Coastal Commission. So I wanted to make sure that was still included. And then there's some other policies, 3.1, 4.4, that we could consider doing the same thing, either eliminating that long list by combining things and making new policies, or just kind of consolidating some of those policies. Cheryl did send me some examples of some consolidated language that we can look at. Maybe put it she mentioned maybe putting it into the comment section. And then I also wanted you to pay particular attention to 1.4. So I combined it's actually now 1.3. I combined what was 1.4 and 3.3. Those were the sort of community design guidelines. And so I combined them and consolidated that. And I would like you to pay particular attention to those because those are what is going to eventually become our new design review guidelines or regulations. So I just want you to pay particular attention to those and then provide any additional feedback. And, I think we're pretty close to being, having this, a final draft that could be ready to go to Coastal Commission and City Council.
Okay, terrific. So I think maybe the best way to do this is to go through it section by section like we have in the past and get everyone's feedback. Does that work for everyone? Okay. All right. So I think the introduction could be, well, let's just start with the introduction, which is the purpose, community design, and the Coastal Act in the background. And then when we get into community design, we'll go item by item. But the first three, I think we've gone through a few times and there weren't a lot of changes. So let me just open it up, commissioners. Any changes that you want to make to the intro? Or the section A, sorry. Commissioner Stockness?
So page 1, the last paragraph. So Trevor, did you add that paragraph? This is one area where Trinidad's view protection has differed from the Coastal Act and its regulatory protections of private views from residences.
That one has been in there, so I didn't add it. I rearranged the section at the last meeting, but it hasn't changed since then, and that paragraph is basically been in there.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, it's just the red part. Let's see. Okay, so what happened is, all we're talking about here is structures, and they restricted the size of homes and commercial structures, but not vegetation. It's just one sentence in the beginning. And, and I'm going to bug everybody about that, about these regulations, with the size of trees and hedges and bushes. And, PG&E has a bunch of rules, 12 feet, 25 feet, 10 feet from a power line. And I don't know how to deal with it, but I just know that we're always talking about the structures, and the vegetation gets really limited amount of talk or print. And being a good neighbor.
Diane, would you want it to say then something like, and I guess this is the question, is has this taken place, that vegetation has been limited? But you could say, since that time, the city has also restricted the size of homes, commercial structures, overgrowth of vegetation, and limited the use of franchise development. But I don't know if we have we limited. Oh, I don't know if overgrowth is the right word. I'm kind of searching.
It just says that the homeowners are to maintain it in one of the ordinances.
Right. Yeah. It goes
nobody
into more detail.
Nobody checks, and you can't do anything unless you go to the planning commission. You can be a good neighbor, you can talk about it, but the neighbors aren't going to do anything unless you take them to town, which means to the planning commission. And I
think we get into it more in the policies, more of the kind of thing you're looking for in the policies and ordinances.
Okay, yeah, I just don't want to make it all about structures.
Yeah.
Because there are so much vegetation in town, and it's not just my issue, it's other people, it's other people's issue too.
Well, would you say, Trevor, that we have limited vegetation? Because we could then say commercial structures, vegetation, and limited the use. I mean, I guess the question is, because when you're writing this, it says this is what has happened in the past, and I'm not sure we have. I think we've limited vegetation somewhat.
Not really. I mean, we have the views and vegetation ordinance. It's it's not a simple topic, but yes, I mean, I could certainly add that vegetation maybe has not been regulated like structures have been. I could mention that as part of the historical context.
Well, what do the other commissioners think? And Diane, what do you think about?
Okay, well, I want to make one more comment, because in the plan, and this has been going on for a couple of years, they want new construction to be underground, and we've talked about it, and it's not going to happen because it's too expensive. The city's not going to do it, unless we get some kind of a grant.
You mean utilities?
Yeah.
Diane? Yeah.
So that's mentioned, and I don't know. I'll bring that up when we come to that part, because I underlined that too. And we've battled that for a couple of years. And I've asked different city officials, and they said, the city can't afford to do that.
Well, I think this might be the last time, probably one of the last times we go through this. So we need to decide if we want to add anything in this part that says something about vegetation has not been a, I don't know how to word it, but a subject of has not been restricted as a general, in the past or something like that.
Okay.
Sorry, that wasn't very articulate.
Thank you,
Mr. Hankinen,
for helping me, Cheryl.
Go ahead.
Just relative to the vegetation, page 5, sorry, CD 2.5, I think it's renumbered, specifically just to the landscaping issue. It does speak landscaping and vegetation shall be maintained such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstruction. So we do have something in there about that.
Yes.
Just to think about. And then, the regulations, that kind of stuff. But as far as back to section A, Trevor, it's a super minor thing. The first two sentences of section A, where that first sentence ends, visitors see, just a thought to do, and, comma, and establishes goals, policies, programs. Just combine those two into one sentence, just a flow thing. And, like I said, really nitpicky, but just a little opportunity.
Yeah, that's good. And I think I'm going to suggest then that we leave the vegetation discussion out of the introduction at this point, because we might then be listing all the things we haven't done. And there could be a lot of other things that maybe would fall into that. And instead, proactively, as we look at the policies and so forth, make sure that we have the things in there that we want to control, out of bounds veg.
Aaron, can you restate which sentence or paragraph you were just referring to?
Yep, Section A, Section 1, purpose. The very first sentence where it ends, visitors see, period, swatching that period to a comma and then eliminating the community design element. So just, it would read, visitors see and establishes goals, policies, yada, so on.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on Section A? All right, we're going to Section D then, community design. And since this gets denser, we're just going to start, I guess, with the first one, CD 1-2. Is that right? CD 1-2, ensure the new development demonstrates excellence of design and sensitivity of the nature of the surrounding neighborhood and built environment, and the buildings are designed to maintain the small town character or just the character of the community. All right, everybody's fine with that. It looks like Commissioner Johnson.
So if I'm tracking with you, then anything on page 3 of the staff, page 3 of the draft element is what we're discussing, correct?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. I was trying to do it CD number by CD number, but I don't think that's going to work. So let's just go to page. Let's do it by page 3.
Okay.
I think makes more sense, Richard.
Might be a little bit easier to follow with the updates. So my comment is in the middle of page 3, and this is under CD 1-3D. Except for necessary public safety facilities, ensure that structures blend with the natural visual form. I don't have any problem with that, but I think that there should be some effort at least made to the extent possible that public safety facilities also ensure that they blend with the natural form. The point being is, yes, I can understand where utilities and that sort of thing might have a difficulty of doing it, but we should at least try to the extent possible to make public facilities conform or to blend in.
So do you think we should just take out except for necessary public safety facilities, or should we, or move that to the end and say necessary public safety facilities should follow this to the extent feasible?
I'm probably okay either way. The example that comes to mind is now the extinct cell phone towers on the head, and the effort that the city tried to get the companies to make it a little more compatible by trying to camouflage the antennas, et cetera. And we weren't really able to do that because there wasn't any real ordinance or rules regarding it. So I'm okay either way. The point being is that public facilities should conform to the extent possible, recognizing that there may be some physical parameters that necessitate that they do not, but that's that's fine.
Yeah, the tsunami siren would be another example.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'd be okay with just striking except for necessary public safety facilities then. Everybody, I see heads nodding.
That's fine.
Yes.
And let me just one caveat. As long as it's clear, Trevor, that any public facilities that are proposed are subject to this requirement.
Yeah, so do you need to call out?
they would be a structure. So I think they would fall under it. Should I add to the extent feasible generically for the entire policy?
Clarifying question. Sorry, when I read this section, I interpreted public safety facilities such as, a fire station, a police station, things like that, a facility, a building. I didn't necessarily see it as infrastructure, so to speak. Is that included in this, or I'm just... Because in my mind, we have a station here that has a massive training tower in the background. And of course, that does not fit the roof line. And do I see that in Trinidad's future? Certainly not. But I was kind of more seeing it that way.
Well, that was my original attempt to say, to the extent possible, only to preclude some things which we know we're not going to be able to be right. Compatible per se. For example, and again, it's maybe far-fetched, but the PG&E facility that's there on Ocean, if they were to come in and decide to remodel that in a very different approach from the rest of the architecture on Ocean Avenue, people might be upset. And certainly, if we had some regulatory way of kind of making sure that the design is compatible with the community standards, then whatever we do is fine with me, whether we want to say to the extent possible or remove it, as long as these public facilities are subject to this policy, then I'm fine.
So I guess, Trevor, is there a working definition of public safety facilities that would help us narrow this discussion? Or but you're muted, Trevor.
It's probably in the public safety element.
Currently, this policy applies to all structures. So I think it might be worthwhile calling out necessary public facilities as a separate item that they're allowed, to make it clear that they are allowed some additional leniency, but that they should still conform to the extent possible. I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure we have a current definition of public facilities, but that can be, maybe that's something worthwhile to add to our definitions.
Yeah, or if we're going to say public safety facilities, because I think maybe it's the safety part was the one that kind of narrowed it down to fire station or other public. If we just said public buildings, I think everybody would know what that meant. I think, and also unnecessarily kind of captures the intent there too.
Right. I mean, if it's necessary for whatever, they only build whatever size, whatever thing widget. I don't know.
Diane?
So I don't want to take it out because everything now is about public safety, from COVID to the fires to climate change to big trees to tourists. And I want to leave it in. And maybe we can say public safety facilities and public facilities, but we don't even have a sheriff's department, or a police department. So we need to spell this out in the general plan. So that's my thought. I don't want it taken out.
Yeah, well, I think that's what I was suggesting. Is I like the idea of specifically mentioning public safety facilities as something that should comply, but may have some additional leeway.
And it looks like Cheryl just dropped offline. I imagine she'll be trying to dial back in.
So while we're waiting for her, I will mention, I'll also point out, I took out the references to small town character of the city. And so I want to get your thoughts on that because, I think as Tom pointed out at the last meeting, what does that mean? And maybe it's just the character of the community, and we don't have to say the small town. It used to be the small town, rural, rustic fishing village character, and I think we've really done away with most of those descriptive terms, and maybe it's just community character.
Sorry, you guys, I dropped the connection there, but I'm back.
Humane for the dog month.
Did anyone want to make a comment on Trevor's question?
I'll just say I like that because it leaves it open down the road. If the character changes, we don't have to come back and revisit this. It's just whatever the character of the community is. I like that.
I agree. I think it's, yeah. Okay, we got thumbs up.
Okay.
Any other comments on page 3? I have a few if no one else has any. Okay, I just had a quick one, Trevor, I was thinking we could combine A and B and say the scale, bulk, orientation, architectural character of the structure and related improvements are compatible with the coastal character of the community and provide adequate room for septic and open space between structures instead of repeating the bulk. And yeah, so just keeping the spirit of it, but making it into one. And then let's see, these were all fine. Oh, D, is it D? Sorry, it might be G now. I think it's G. Minimize the size of advertising, business identification, and directional signs. I thought should be moved to the signage section. I think it's actually in the signage section already, so I don't know that it needs to be both places, and that was it. All right, if there are no, oh, sorry, Richard, did you?
Well, and I'm fine with that as long as that still maintains the criteria, that it still is a criteria for design review. And this section is supposed to be design review, I believe. So removing it, I think it's fine as long as it's, I just want to make sure we don't lose that in the design review process.
Good question.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Richard. Like if you look at the next one, it has to do with lighting. And so, I think those are both things that we want to keep in the general design guidelines. I think that's probably a good.
What if we reworded it something to the effect of, ensure that advertising signage meets the criteria as outlined in the city's, sign ordinance and regulations, just to keep it like it's still in there as a criteria, but then the specifics are located in that other spot.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because that's what the note I made later when I put it in the signage area was also something about the design criteria. We get into detail in such and such ordinance.
Right.
But we could leave it here. Maybe it's instead of minimize the size of advertising, business identification, and directional signage to ensure scenic views are not obstructed. It could be, conduct design review. Well, actually, I guess I could just say the way it is because it's under the heading of design review. I'm okay with leaving it. I didn't feel that strongly about it.
I think, I think it's good to have not just referencing regulations, but to actually have some design policies in here. Because complying with regulations is really a given. And then these provide a little bit more guidance for that design review process where, there's a little bit more give and take than just, a maximum height or size or something.
All right, Commissioner Stockness.
So this whole section that we're talking about is about community character policies. So we need to cover everything in the community, from garages to public safety to design, to parking to everything, just because that outlines the character, fences, all of that. I think it's fine because I think Trevor did a really good job talking about community character, and then we're going to do the next one is, I think it's scenic views. And then, so we don't need to change it. I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay.
And that way, if somebody's only going to read what's a community character, they're going to get a lot out of this page. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. I think we're going to leave that one. Commissioner Hopkins, question or comment?
I have no problem with it. I thought it was interesting looking back over the whole year and how you weave stuff from the Windsor and the Gilroy, and you really did a good job of weaving a lot into it based on what the other examples were. So, it's nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, good job. All right, page 4, speaking of scenic views, and I think there's one other item up at the top there. Any comments on page 4? I read through it. I was good with the changes, Trevor. So, commissioners, any other changes or edits there? I don't see any on that page. Oh, Commissioner Heikkinen?
Yeah, I just had a general question that I'm seeing here that I was going to bring up later. In page 4, we outline fences, walls, accessory structures, and landscaping. Then, I guess where do pergolas and trellises and that kind of stuff? That's not in here. If somebody wants to put something like that up in their yard, do we need to incorporate that here? Should we do that elsewhere in the landscaping section, or just kind of more general question that I see cropping up here as well?
I think they would fall under accessory structures. That's a pretty broad definition. They're also kind of landscaping design features as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah. Sounds good. Commissioner Hopkins, you had a question or comment?
It was a similar question. I'll wait until we get to that section.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other changes on page 4. Let's move on to page 5. I like the fact that you removed CD 1.4, Trevor. That would look good to me, and agreed with some of your comments that you made as well. Any other comment? Yes,
yeah, just on the very first section, why are we specifying occupied versus unoccupied? Why not both in that very first line on page 5 at the top there?
So I think the intent of that is so that, it's someone can't claim that it's the view from their workshop or their garage or something like that. That's not a protected view. It's really from a residence or a store.
Okay.
So if there was an abandoned building, no one could say somebody's blocking my view, basically, I guess.
Well,
but if it's a home, they can, though, right? That's kind of what you're saying,
maybe it doesn't need to say occupied because it refers to residential or commercial structures, not accessory structures. And just because a residence is vacant doesn't mean that its views aren't necessarily protected.
Right. That was kind of where my headspace was on that.
Yeah. So maybe, within a residential or commercial structure, that's fine. I think we'll take out occupied.
That makes sense. Okay, I'm going to move us on then to page 6. Commissioner Stockman.
I have a comment on 5.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, because
we'll go back.
I kind of lost you on the on part of that. I just think that we need to talk about residential more and not just public or residents or maybe even neighborhoods. So CD I don't know what it is. Is it 2.5? Trevor, is that what it is? Landscaping and vegetation shall be maintained such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstruction in accordance with the policies and regulations of the city.
Yep.
Instead of blockage, it's going to be obstruction.
That's the wording in the views and vegetation ordinance. So
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's good. Okay. So then CD 2.1 or CD, develop a vegetation management plan or program for bluffside vegetation maintenance consistent with protections for ESHAs and cultural resources. What does that mean?
So that is, that's really looking at, say, the bluff below Edward Street, and that it is something that the management plan, the Cherry management plan, I believe, calls for developing some sort of vegetation management plan. But obviously within that area, it has to be consistent with, sensitive habitat, cultural resources, and maybe slope stability should be on that list as well.
And so does that mean they do that, or does the city do that? Because they're not doing anything as far as bluffside management and maintenance.
It's not really specific, so it's a program, so that would really be directed at the city, would develop that.
Okay, well, I know they cut part of the grass there, and I've asked them to fix that curbway because it's got a bunch of chunks in it. Okay, so then the next one, so because that's bluffside vegetation maintenance, we can't put residential maintenance in there too, because it's talking about the bluff.
I mean, you could add a program for residential landscaping, I suppose. But this is really a separate idea from that.
Okay, so, okay, and then the next one is what I was talking about, preserve and enhance view corridors by undergrounding and or screening new or relocated electric and communication distribution lines. So it's too much money to do that. But we're just going to keep mentioning it, right?
Well, I think, the PG&E did at one point provide some funding for that. And, maybe some grant funding or other source of funds might come up in the future. And so I think it's clearly still a priority. So might be too expensive now, but something might change in the future.
I think we ran all ours underground, but then
what was that?
We ran all ours underground.
Well, the new construction, they're making you do it underground.
Yes.
I know it's like
you're talking about existing.
It's like $400 a square foot. That's what it was last year.
Yeah. So this was new development, but it is expensive. I agree.
Okay. All right. I still want to get that residential management in there somewhere.
Residential management of the
well, we've got the bluff side.
Yeah, you're talking about
we got vegetation management for bluff side, but we need residential.
Maybe in the landscaping section.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Okay, well, I'm going to beat that until I get until I get it in there.
Yeah, it's also
it's a huge
as well.
Such a huge issue.
It is. All right. So page 6.
Okay.
and I had to Trevor's comments earlier, I'd sent her kind of an abbreviated version of 3.1, but I'm not going to try to put that in the chat window. Let me just walk through it high level. What I was just suggesting to Trevor was maybe some of this was too specific for a general plan, and I could be wrong. But I was saying that, for example, D, I would probably delete because it's pretty much the same as A, which is conforming to the natural topography. I probably combine those two to say conform to the natural topography, requiring man-made contours mimic natural contours, and just make that one sentence. I wondered if the C was too specific because it says minimize flat building pads on slopes. Building pads on sloping sites shall utilize split level or stepped pad designs. Again, I just wasn't sure, and this is, I guess, for discussion, how specific we were getting here in the general plan versus the actual building, guidelines, right? So, and let's see, I think the other one was on H and I would have combined those to minimize height and length of cut and fill slopes and retaining walls, make it just one. And then the last one, J, I took out including street patterns, trails, open space, water courses, drainage, and utility systems. So I would just have it say integrating site design with infrastructure systems of the surrounding area. So what I had said, Trevor, was just sort of an abbreviated version of this and taking out some of the finer details, leaving those for ordinances. And so anyway, and Trevor, I don't know if that you agreed with that, or do you think I think what you're saying is we do need to leave some of the policy specifics in this document.
No, I think this is one where I think they could probably all come out. They are very specific. Maybe there's a couple of key ones we want to pull out and put in their own policies. It might be helpful if I had provided you, and you could go look yourself, or I can give it to you at the next meeting. The policies on, reducing erosion and sedimentation from the conservation element, because they also limit ground disturbance as well. And so maybe it's adequately covered by those in terms of, the more regulatory guidance and this, because this is really more design guidance. And I think some of this goes beyond, again, maybe we pull out a couple of these key ones and combine them into their own policies. But yeah, I'm not sure I like these long lists of specific criteria in the general plan.
Okay, so I cut and pasted into the comments what I had provided you, Trevor, but I think I'm not sure you guys are seeing it. It looks like it might have just gone to the city clerk. So see if you see it in chat. And okay, but I think I gave you verbally the idea, and if you guys agree, then maybe Trevor can take that feedback and kind of reduce the amount of detail, I guess. Richard's thinking it over. I can tell. Yeah.
Go ahead, Diane, then I'll
Okay.
Okay. Diane, well, you go first.
I think we need the detail. We are going to get ADUs that are going to do whatever they want. We've got 3 new people in town from out of California. Okay. And we've got contractors that have help that aren't all licensed. And we need to be as specific as possible to get these regulations so they do it right. So they don't come in and build a big mound of dirt and then put something on top of it, build it, or they fill in this or that, and they need to look at the street patterns, the water. There are no lines in the street. And, now we're going to get the stormwater. I guess that's what's happening all over town. All the red flags are the stormwater everywhere. And then we're going to have these utility systems. So I want to leave them. I don't want it cut out to integrate site design with infrastructure because, infrastructure has been defined in different ways from here to the government. So
what I
anyway,
can do is I could save these, because I think what the thing is this is a general plan, and the policies are supposed to guide the regulations. And so we're going to eventually get to the regulations where we're going to include these kind of specifics and even more specific. So, to get to your point, Diane, of we don't want people just doing things willy-nilly, and they're going to be following the regulations. They're going to look at the grading ordinance. They're going to look at the zoning ordinance. And that's where they're going to go for their guidance. They're not going to look at the general plan anyway, because again, that's usually general. And so it really just needs to set the stage for the regulations.
Okay. I just like how specific they are. And I can tell you 3 things that happened that were not okay, weren't even taken to the city hall, from 2 roofs to something else that was being done in town. And I, of course, went to the city hall and said, hey, these guys got a permit to do this. These guys, oh, well, they're good people. And I said, no, do they have a permit? And, there's a lot of chat around town. Oh, they're not checking on permits. I'm going to do it without a permit. They'll catch me. And I know we're going to talk about that later on, but I really want us to be specific. We are a top-notch, desirable town, and including Humboldt County. Everybody wants to be here.
Yeah. So just to clarify
the rules.
Just to clarify, I was not suggesting that we take out all of the kind of the policy design guidelines. I was suggesting we move some of the more detailed components of it to the regulations. So it's not a matter of getting rid of it. It's a matter of where does it belong? Where does that detail belong? Does it belong here, or does it belong in the procedures and the regulations that people are required to follow when they build? And so, yeah, I wouldn't take out the entire A through J. I was suggesting that we consolidate and take out some of the detail and move it to another place. So removing it from here doesn't mean it goes away for good, in other words. But I'm open to, everybody's thoughts on that. Diane, I hear you loud and clear that you'd like to keep the detail there. So others, Commissioner Johnson, I think you had some comments as well.
Well, I almost agree with Diane, but I will say this, that this can be streamlined. There's no question about it, as long as we maintain the traceability back to the general plan. Because as Trevor has pointed out, anyone who is going to do any development is going to be looking at the ordinances and the rules and regulations. And as long as there's that, like I said, that arrow pointing back to the general plan, then we have done our job. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate that I can't share, because I don't think it's really it's not that major of a change. Commissioner Hopkins? You're up if you can. Yeah, there you go.
Excuse me, I couldn't get my mouse to work. I'm wondering, since this is a general plan and it is environmental or compatibility policies and stuff, if this would be a good place to put something about that this was the ancestral site, and that it should be respected if there's digging or something and you find something. It's mentioned on CD 7.4, but it kind of lumps it all in like it's the cemetery, or it's the one designated area, but the whole town was. And I think we should honor that and respect it a little bit somewhere in this.
Good point.
That's a good point. Yeah. I agree. And I'm trying to think Trevor, where would you think we might, or Aaron, I think you have some ideas as well.
the cross.
I do, not specific to that point. I totally agree with Tom's point. I think that's an excellent idea because the whole town obviously was that. Mine was more just specific to the, back to CD3-1 that we were talking about. Sorry, hang on, let me mute for a second there, yapping behind me.
It's okay.
Yes, I think that's good. I think, maybe it could go in the sort of general community character policy somewhere, since those are kind of all encompassing, and then maybe something more specific in that last section as well that isn't just limited to those sites that are listed.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Commissioner Hopkins, does that address your concern at all, or you're on mute, Tom? There you go.
Sorry. It does sound good, but I really like the word respect. If that could be in there, respect for the land, for what was here in the past, and what we're going to do in the future. If you could please add that somewhere, I would like to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, that works. Other comments? Commissioner Hickinen, you were going to add
I just had the one to Diane's point. I agree with the absolute need for specificity, as far as these rules and regulations. I guess this is kind of to my point from earlier. I guess my concern is that if we get specific in this document with some things, and then we're also specific in a policy later, I'll be honest, I'm not going to remember the details later, and we may change a should to a shall or something there, and then it's going to be different when it comes back to this document. We're going to be setting ourselves and the public up to have two competing pieces of information potentially. And so I guess I'm okay if we feel the specificity needs to be here, but I'd love to see some kind of cross-reference of the documents to kind of, when we fix one area, it's got to then come back to this area too. And if that's not realistic, given the process for updating, perhaps we shouldn't be as specific and should reference the policies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess I agree. I guess the reason I've been kind of trying to reduce some of the detail was exactly that. If you want an evergreen document, it can't be too specific, but it needs to be specific enough, right? And that's what I think we always wrestle with, is how do we give enough information in the general plan so that it's very clear what the spirit of the general plan is about. And that's kind of how I think of the general plan as the master plan, right? It's when we're talking about environmental compatibility, it's saying in general terms, we want new development. We want development in the town to follow the natural contours of the land, to be kind of seen but not heard kind of thing, right? So it's like we want to kind of express the spirit, but not get down to, but don't, dig more than 18 inches.
Right, and I feel like,
it's like, yeah.
The line new development shall be designed to fit the site rather than altering the landform to accommodate the structure. That's, for me, that's pretty good direction. And then the specifics as far as what we mean, what that looks like to us, I wouldn't be opposed to this getting pulled out and placed elsewhere in the city's documents, I guess, in its entirety, A through J. For that reason,
I'm fine with
the general intent is there. Here's our mindset is to make things match the land instead of the land to match the project. And then, in more detail elsewhere, we can specify what that looks like.
So let me ask the city clerk. So I'm unable to share put it in the chat, the recommendation for the edits to this section, but it's only going to the city clerk. So it's going as a direct message and not a share.
I shared it with everyone. Can anyone see that?
Oh, thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, it's there now.
Now you guys can see it. Okay. So maybe and then I'm going to try to move us on because I recognize that we're getting pretty long on this one, but I just want to give you an idea of what I was talking about, which was just some editing of, kind of paring it down, but not eliminating all the detail.
Okay.
So Trevor, I think what, go ahead, Richard.
I was just going to say, as a general rule, we might want to just say that if we go more than 2 indentures, we're too deep into it. So that's
sounds good.
Kind of a general rule that we can use.
So I'm going to say this. I'm going to move us all along. So I think what I heard Trevor, was we want to keep some of this detail in here. If there's a way to keep the spirit of it and kind of consolidate, that's great. But we don't want to cut it all out. That's kind of what I heard. I think Aaron and I were more in the camp of maybe reducing it down more. And I think Diane and Richard are saying, well, let's keep some of that there, because experience has taught them that you need some of that detail. So
yeah, I think
is that clear as mud, or?
Yeah, no, I think I can work on finding a happy medium. I'm pretty happy with what I did with that lighting policy, which was sort of similar, where I combined some things and added them into the policy, and then I took a few things out and combined them into a new policy. But I, took out some of that detail and repetition. So I think I can try and do something similar with this policy as well.
Okay, that sounds good. And then not to put too fine a point on it, but I thought 3.3 and 3.2 were an awful lot alike. So I thought those two could maybe roll into one, but that's food for thought. It's not, certainly not a critical thing. All right, I'm going to move us on to page 7.
I have some comments on page 6. I'm not done.
Oh, please.
Okay. So 3.2 says new development shall be sited and designed to minimize impacts on views from trails, beaches, and the ocean. And I want to add, and the neighborhoods.
I think that was covered under scenic views and community character. This is specific to sensitivity to the surrounding natural environment.
Okay.
And the view shed protection that we have in town would also cover that, I think, Diane, from the neighbors.
It doesn't. It's not good enough. So we're going to have to work on that too. The view protection. Yeah. All right.
All right. Now we're on page 7, which is signage.
So I'll start real quick here, just by kind of, again, the same concept of the specificity, that same point I've made, just ad nauseum for every section we come to. I did find in, I just thinking, pull the specific regs, and I found this from, I believe this was the city of Santa Rosa. I'll have to figure out where I pulled it from, but it basically said sign and signage requirements. Well-designed signs can add to the attractiveness of an area, while signage that is cluttered or overbearing detracts from the beauty of the streetscape. Signs also serve as a symbol for businesses and can help merchants build a positive business image. The intent of these guidelines is to encourage signage that helps maintain the positive image of the area enjoyed by residents and business of Trinidad, every Trinidad business. And it just kind of goes on and has kind of like a nice general feel for, I think, what we're trying to convey, the intent. And then again, the details can be in the guiding documents. That was going to be my suggestion kind of for this whole section.
Yeah, if you want to send that to me, that would be great. And I think, with 4.4, I would suggest doing something similar, like we talked about with 3.1, where we, take out some of the key things and make them their own policies, and then save some of those specific details for the regulations.
So yeah, I'm in the same camp again with this one, and I sent Trevor some suggested text, and I put it in the chat window as well. So maybe something for future discussion. But the same idea was, I kind of went and read some of them too, Aaron. Like, I think I don't even remember what city it was. It was like San Diego or Carmel. I think it was Carmel. They have a lot of, they really try to keep the look and feel of Carmel, a certain spirit, right? The sense of community, right? I can't remember how they worded that, but a sense of place, I think. And so it's the same idea, like, having just kind of general statements and not getting into like the size of the signs and the dimensions and things like that in the general plan, but having that in a signage ordinance.
Yes. Did you see the Carmel design guidelines though?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
That's a little much.
Yeah, I don't think we could go to the extent. Yeah, they have pictures of exactly the way your sign should look, how tall it should be, whether it's made of brick or stone, or it's pretty funny.
And how many rocks you can use in your rock facade.
It's overkill, but I like their sort of, the general guidelines they had. Anyway, other comments about signage, page 7. Otherwise, we'll move on to page 8. All right, moving on to page 8. Any comments there?
CD 5.3 seemed redundant to me. Like that whole one could be struck, that it's kind of encapsulated in the rest of CD 5.
I think I said the same thing. I thought 5.5 also. Oh no, sorry. 5.5 seemed like it might be redundant with 5.1. So there may be an opportunity for combining and still getting the same meaning in there.
That is what I meant. 5.5.
Yeah. Other than that, looks good.
CD 6.3. My question on that was, why is it only commercial property owners? Wouldn't that be? I mean, anybody we want to have that requirement, if you've got dead or overgrown vegetation, we'd like you to do something about it.
Yeah, so this is where Diane, sorry, go ahead, Trevor, and then I'm going to ask Commissioner Stockness too to chime in on this one, because I know this is a passionate area.
So the reasoning on that would be that residential development isn't required to have a certain square footage or percentage of landscaping, where commercial development is. And so it's the idea that, if a parking lot is required to have, 10% landscaping or something like that, they actually have to maintain that 10% landscaping. So that's the idea behind it. Something in terms of residential development, maybe it would be something more like, prohibiting vegetation that, is dead and poses a nuisance or a hazard or something like that.
I think 6.2 and 6.4 do address the residential, though, with that it doesn't obstruct views in 6.2, and in 6.4 that it doesn't impact a right of way. But if somebody has like dead landscaping or something, I don't know, don't come to my house.
Right. Or yeah.
I got a lot of
I got my dolly, my
ugly trees right now.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I need help if anybody knows a good landscaper. So Aaron, are you okay though? Seriously with that?
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah. And it's a fine line. I don't think we have the business of telling people how to landscape their yards. And one of the things, and this is getting ahead from the landscape thing, but I enjoy the mixed and varied styles in town. I hope to have it inspire me one, because I have a blank slate. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm totally fine with that. And thank you for pointing out that piece that covers kind of the residential one in the first section there.
Okay. Diane, you've been concerned about the vegetation. This seems like one that has some teeth in it, but you tell us what you would like, if you'd like to see something different there.
So 6.4, prohibit landscaping from encroaching into public rights-of-way, trails, and easements. There is landscaping in the streets, and there could be parking, but there's landscaping from trees to bushes to rosemary bushes on sidewalks. And then, it's Kyle, the maintenance guy, will do some of it, but without Ryan and, the regulars that were here for so long, it's not always getting done. But we do have the fire the old fire chief doing things. But CD 6.2, require property owners to maintain the landscaping on developed sites such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstructions in accordance with the policies and regulations of the city. So a lot of that was crossed out, Trevor, and I don't want it crossed out. I want it spit out there. And it says it's consistent with 2.5. So I went back to 2.5, and 2.5, landscaping shall be maintained such that it does not cause unreasonable view obstruction in accordance with policies and regulations of the city. So we need to put it in there in big words, and we need to say consistent with the city's views and vegetation ordinance, so that they get the landscaping policy understood, that it is an issue.
Well, it's not just the views and vegetation ordinance. There are limitations on hedge heights and things like that in the zoning ordinance. So I just wanted to make sure it covers all vegetation regulations, not just the views and vegetation ordinance.
Okay, well, in accordance with, so instead of in accordance with the policies and regulations of the city, and consistent with the city's views and vegetation ordinance.
I could add including the views and vegetation ordinance, sure.
Yeah, it has to have meat. I mean, there's just no way those people are going to do anything without, it being really written out. So are those red flags the stormwater that are all over town?
I believe so. It must be.
Okay, because they're not just down at the down at the beach.
No, they go
It starts
along.
way up in town, and it's lots of streets.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I think
That's it for right now.
Okay. So we're on the last page, page 9. I just had a quick question, Trevor, under other landscaping initiatives. I was wondering why ensuring that all public landscaping was adequately maintained wouldn't just be part of the landscaping policies and instead of other. And then under other community design initiatives at the bottom, you guys can tell me if I'm crazy, but I thought we should take all of those out because I thought the first one, I'm not sure supporting beautification efforts really fit with this. I wasn't sure what that would really mean exactly. And then ensuring properties are well maintained and nuisances are abated felt like enforcement to me. And encouraging LEED certification and new development I thought would be in a different element. So I just thought maybe we could clean it up by taking those out. And that's all I had on that. So let me know if I'm crazy. Diane.
They shouldn't be taken out because we are trying to get a beautification group together to work on the neighborhoods, not just Dorothy and Mary picking up litter, but, just being able to, help somebody weed or take the green waste away or, trim a little edge of ice plant that's out in the right of way or a couple branches.
Okay,
and
so the city would support.
I mean, I could go with the last one, the LEED certification could be out, but we talked about properties being maintained and nuisances abated. Until we get me hired as the landscape deputy, nothing's going to happen unless people want to do it. And I think ensure all public landscaping is adequately maintained needs to be out there. It's like a stop sign.
So wouldn't it be a policy though, or as opposed to another design
But
initiative? I guess
It could be a policy, yeah.
but it's been in the design element, but it just needs to be, it needs to be talked about. It's a big issue.
Yeah, I was just worried that if we had things in sort of other initiatives, that it was something like it was like a placeholder for things that either should go away or should be put in the policies. But
okay, so what do you think, Trevor?
I don't know.
Other community?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think ensure public landscaping is adequately maintained. That can be a policy. I think it was a coastal commission suggestion to have other initiatives, and so we have them sprinkled throughout the general plan.
Okay.
And because the policies are really supposed to guide approval of development according to the coastal commission, but we use the city symbol for things that are really important enough that we still think they should be city policies, but not necessarily a criteria for approving a coastal development permit.
Okay.
But I use the other initiatives for things like encourage, support, provide information, encourage Caltrans to do something with the roadways, and encourage the county to remove invasives. So it's that kind of thing. So I do think that, I think that supporting beautification efforts, that is a legitimate sort of an other initiative. Encourage leads certification, again, encourage is one of those things that could be other initiatives. That one, I think it's probably covered in the sustainability and energy sections that we've dealt with. So I'm not sure it's really necessary for community design. Ensure that properties are well maintained and nuisances are abated. Maybe that's a city policy. Maybe it should be stronger than just another initiative. It is worded as ensure as opposed to encourage or support. So I'm,
Yeah, you're helping me. Yeah, thank you, you guys. You're helping me remember. I know we've talked about other initiatives before, and I probably kind of forgot that they had a legitimate place in the document, and that they weren't something that we just kind of parked there because sometimes we kind of park things and then come back to them later. So I remember now. Thank you for refreshing my memory.
Steve Madrone wants to help us get some of those going.
Oh, that's good.
Beautification grants, the catch water, and he's really up on those. So, and if the Coastal Commission wants us to mention it, we need to put it in print.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for beautification. Commissioner Johnson.
So again, we have to keep reminding ourselves that you have to go back to the goal that is this section is based on. And that is to encourage energy efficiency. So that kind of makes sense when you're talking lead, use reduction and conservation in new and existing development, public art and open space, protecting important community resources. So beautification and ensure properties are well maintained certainly could fall under the umbrella of the goal. So in some ways, we're not doing anything that's unorthodox here.
All right, cool. All right, any other comments or questions? Commissioner Hopkins?
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with I don't mind seeing it more than once either.
All right.
It might hit it home to people.
Yeah, I just, me, I'm trying to like Edward Scissorhands this thing. Okay.
I just had
Sure,
one. The only thing on here was the lead certification line. I felt like pulling that from the bottom and putting that at the end of CD 7.1 would be a natural fit, because CD 7.1 sure talks about a lot of lead certification elements. Then to some line to the effect of lead certification is encouraged in residential and commercial development and design, or along those lines. It just felt like it fit there a little bit better than as a separate initiative.
Yeah, so that's still in there. We just move it. All right. Well, this is good because I think it's good to have, push on these things, and then we can, know that we're really doubling down and we believe in what's in the document. So that's good. Thank you. Okay, this is final call for any other comments about this. Good. Yeah. Commissioner Hopkins. I'm only laughing because Commissioner Haken pretended to raise his hand.
When I was looking through all the stuff that we've been looking at all year in regards to this, I came across a flow chart, and I know Richard has discussed flow charts, and I just thought maybe this isn't the time to bring it up, but that's that it kind of just reminded me. Oh yeah, like how it all proceeds.
Yeah, so you might like to see a flow chart of.
Yeah, there was one on the back of something that we did from a long time ago, Gilroy or something, and it just shows everybody this is how it all flows through the city of Trinidad. But I don't know, I've heard Richard bring it up before. I just thought I'd bring it up again this time and see.
Yeah, I really think that I'm going to be pushing to add a section on the city's website for permitting guidance, frequently asked questions, and that would be a good place for flowcharts for the permitting and design review process. So I am going to be working on that. And if anybody loves making flowcharts and wants to volunteer their design skills, just let me know.
Don't all raise your hands at once. Okay. All right. So we're about an hour and a half into the meeting. I think our next topic. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Let me open to public comments. Are there any public comments on the community design element? And I apologize for anyone who's hanging in from the public. That was very detailed, but any comments? Sherry, please.
Thank you. I love your guys' work session. This is what we do sometimes in some of the council meetings I'm at, and we do go line by line and talk about the meaning of words. So I appreciate the detailed work session that you guys are doing on this. And my comment is, after this review and you've made your recommendations, is there a period of time that it goes out to like a public hearing process, or does it go straight to city council and then that's where the public hearing is at? Just a process question. Thank you.
Good question. So, I mean, this is going to be a work in progress still for some time. So, I mean, technically this is a public hearing. The city council is a public hearing. So that would be the next step for this. But then at some point, all the elements are going to also be brought back together as one document. And, we are doing these detailed work sessions, and we have had a lot of, different planning commissioners working on these documents, but we haven't got a lot of public comments. And I thought we would get more at the city council meetings, like last night, with the land use element. That is really kind of the overarching element for the city. And we've done a lot of work on it, and I think it's good, but I was surprised that there wasn't more comment from either the council or the public. And so I am thinking about, how does the city reach out and get some more public input? And I think the website is one way, but I am open to suggestions. I am working on a grant application to the Coastal Commission for an LCP update, and that's going to include some public outreach. I don't have the specifics yet. The city's OPC grant for public coastal hazards planning includes a substantial sort of public engagement plan they're going to come up with. And so that might be helpful. So I think that is something that we need to work towards.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that we, discuss both here and at the city council is, just community, the communication and public engagement on the general plan. It could be that we do some sort of a forum, and I guess it'd be a virtual open house kind of thing where we go through, high level each of the elements and invite public feedback or something and maybe advertise that. Sherry, do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, but given your role, you may have some ideas or things that you'd like to see us do, or is there anything you wanted to add about what we should try to do in that regard?
Well, we certainly don't have a big document as your whole general plan. We have ordinances. So say you take this particular section, and that would be one public hearing just on this section versus the whole thing. I think the whole thing is really a lot to swallow. But what we would do is we'd have an ordinance or a portion of this, and we would set a public hearing separate from council meetings and separate from our work sessions. So that so we'd put it on our website, but we also sent out postcards. And we have 6,400 tribal members. So we're sending out postcards when we say this is a public hearing on, hunting ordinance or a public hearing on land use. We do have land assignment ordinance. So that's what we do. We certainly don't get a whole lot of participation, either. But I was just wondering if there was a separate public hearing process that you do. So thank you for allowing me to share just some thoughts about that.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that, we don't do something separate, and it sounds like it could be a good idea to do that. So I love that idea. So public hearing and announcing on the website, maybe sending out notifications. So I like it. All right, we are going to move on then to streamlining residential projects. And we'll start with Trevor, if you want to give us the overview, and then we can go through that one real quick.
Yeah, so we didn't spend a lot of time on this at the last meeting. We kind of ran out of time. So I didn't really present you any new information other than I did provide you some examples of exemptions from other communities to sort of give you a little bit more context. And, I sort of went down the coast looking at small communities, and I expanded to larger communities. And it does seem like they are, have been hemmed in by the Coastal Act regulations. And so I think what we've got seems to be pretty standard, being based on the Coastal Act regulation exemptions. Communities tweak them a little bit. They do have these exclusion orders, which is what Trinidad's exemptions currently are, that are separate from the Coastal Act exemptions. So I didn't find a lot of inspiration and creativity in other communities. But I think it does provide some context as to what those look like. And then, I've so far just included for you the residential exemptions. And so these other communities, you can see the repair and maintenance and the exemptions for other structures. So you can kind of see where this will eventually add those to this. But because the SB2 grant is I'm trying to meet those tasks, and that was focused on, sort of streamlining residential development. So that's what I focused on here for now. So basically the same information, the same regulation. So I have provided sort of the modified Coastal Act exemptions that I think fit fit for Trinidad, but based on and follow pretty closely what are in the Coastal Act regulations. I have provided you the existing Trinidad exemptions, which I think need to be modified. And so I would like to get some specific input from you on, which of these we should try and keep, and then which should be just more generic, fall under the, improvements to existing single family residences. And then there's the waiver process for the de minimis development, which again follows the Coastal Commission's regulations and procedures.
Whoops. Okay. So on this one, would you guys rather go through page by page again, or should we go commissioner by commissioner? Because that's another option if there are not a lot of changes. Richard?
Let me just come at this at a little bit different angle.
Okay.
Trevor, I am very confused about the map. And I think I would suggest that we start with the map because that might solve or answer some questions that have permeated through the whole document. So that's just my recommendation is we start there so that at least we can understand what this thing's supposed to say.
I'm fine with that. I saw heads nodding, so.
I'm happy to go over that. We shouldn't get too hung up on this map because this is, obviously our from the 80s map that is terrible. And we are going to be working on a new map. So this map actually is associated with that exclusion order of Trinidad. So the exemptions that I have in here that are Trinidad's existing exemptions go with this map specifically. And this is part of that exclusion order that was approved by the Coastal Commission. So that yellow area outside the bold dark line is that is where that is excluded from. So that's item B. So except in the area identified as the map proposed as Appendix B, areas not included in the exemption. So that map is associated with that section. So basically in that yellow area, this exemption for a 500 square foot accessory structure doesn't apply. So that's the exclusion from that exemption.
Okay, so this is my problem with this. We're dealing always in these negative definitions.
Double negative.
Is there a way in which we can flip this around so that it's, I keep thinking of our customer, which is the public. They're not going to understand this. I barely understand it. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way in which we can make it more presentable to our customers, the public. And to say that this is the excluded area for our exemptions is meaningless. Help me.
Well, unfortunately, that combination is not uncommon. CEQA has exemptions, but then there's exceptions to the exemptions, and NEPA has exclusions to its exceptions, and so it's something that we have to deal with on some level. But yes, no, I don't think that we're going to have that. My envision is that we're going to go back to these modified Coastal Act exemptions where it's going to be based on, whether you're between the road and the first, between the sea and the first public road, or if you're within 300 feet of a bluff. So it's going to be more of a narrative, although I am working on a map where we're mapping the edge of the bluff, which I think will be very handy to have. And so we can actually map that appealable area because it's within 300 feet of a bluff. And that's also those also affect the exemptions. And so, mapping this yellow area doesn't make sense. I think it makes more sense to just say, within 50 feet of a bluff or something like that. So that's what we're moving towards. And I apologize, I didn't have a chance to work on a flow chart. I think that would be, you mentioned that at our last meeting, Richard, and I think that's a good idea for this process. I just didn't, I was working on the council packet also last week and this LCP grant application, so I didn't have time to get to the flow chart, but I think that would be helpful.
Well, okay, let me just plow
Hey guys,
through
I
this real
apologize.
fast.
I've got to run. If I make it back, I can. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Richard.
So help me with the red line.
So the red line.
Well, let me just finish just a second. The red line, to me, I understand what it is. It's the area that's appealable to the Coastal Commission, granted. But the red line just stops. And there's no contiguous area that it encompasses. So help me understand what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, and so these colors actually we added ourselves. So in 1985, this was all just black and white. And so I added the color, and the red line should continue all the way up to city limits, really. So that is the area that the Coastal Commission considers between the sea and the first public road.
So then when you say you continue on the black line, I don't go all the way up to the furthest north city boundary. It cuts off and then turns west and comes down the coast. Is that correct?
Well, no, see, that's the other black line. So that's the black line for the exclusion area. So no, the red line should go all the way north, straight, continue north along, Trinity to the city limit line.
So it sounds like we might need both the narrative and the map and the updated map.
I think so. And I would try and argue that Underwood, like the school property to me is between the sea and the first public road, just because there's some park property north. I think that, I think Underwood should be that line. I'm going to argue that with the Coastal Commission. We'll see how they feel about that. And then the appealable area also includes areas within 100 feet of a creek. So that's why it extends up the creeks as well.
Okay, so I don't see on this map, unless I'm missing it, any cross-hatched area, which is area seaward of the first public road, subject of exclusion order. Where is that?
That is
isn't it the part that's the main part of town? I mean,
yeah. So I think it's.
Well, that's not the area that's seaward of the first public road.
I know.
No,
so
you're right. That's more. But I think the intent of that is it's supposed to be the area between the yellow and the red. I mean, that's the area that's crosshatched.
So where it says UR and PR and
which it is. So the everything outside of the red line, if you extended it north, everything outside of the red is areas seaward of the first public road. But then the yellow area on top of that is adjacent to the mean high tide line where those exemptions don't apply.
Okay, well, I guess my message is the map is confusing. We need to do something to help the public understand this. and I don't want to go any further into it. I know you're going to work it, but this to me needs a lot of work to really be a tool to help people understand what we're talking about. So thank you for my ranting and raving.
Yeah.
No, you don't. No, it's a terrible map. And it's, it's one of those things where it takes kind of years of sort of using it to figure it out. Someone can't pick this map up and figure it out. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, it's outdated. It's
Well,
outdated.
I mean,
because-
it's outdated as well.
Yeah, because it should be Underwood. For sure, it should be Underwood, and then just see who would do this map. Then would you be able to do it, or GHD? Okay.
Yeah,
I was as confused as Richard because I couldn't understand. It seems like, well, sure, they'd be exempt if they were in the high tide, but anybody in town, probably not. So I don't know. Let's can it until next time.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to provide some input on the? I mean, I feel like some of the stuff in here is not. It's not all tied to the map.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So there may be some things that we can address. So
Okay.
Why don't we go commissioner by commissioner? I'll give you guys a chance to kind of look at it while I selfishly roll off a couple of my observations. So, and then I'll just tell you which page, Trevor, and you guys can chime in. So if you have questions. So I'm looking at page 1 and B6. And I just wanted to clarify that the improvements result in the replacement of 50% or more of the walls or foundation of the residence. And so I would read that to mean if the improvements would result in a replacement of 50% or more of the foundation, right? So the foundation or the structure.
Yeah, so if you're replacing more than 50% of a structure, then it constitutes new development under the Coastal Act.
Okay, thank you. And then on the top of page 2, I thought just for clarity, I might add the word exempt in there. Even though the whole section is about the Modified Coastal Act exemptions, we use the word exempt in B, and I just thought maybe we'd say something like, blah, 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 these emergency shelters, transitional support, and blah, 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 and animal husbandry are exempt or something. So that I just thought for clarity. I didn't know, I hate to bring it up even, on page 2, I made a note to self about trees. So we had a lot of conversation about trees, and there's nothing I didn't see anything in this document, maybe I missed it, where there was an exemption for example, cutting down 2 trees that had the circumference of, less than 9 inches or something like that, or anything about trees. So I wanted to point that out. The other thing was also on page 2, the electroleer. I don't know what an electroleer is, but I'm thinking if it's pole lighting, we should just call it pole lighting or light fixture or a standalone light fixture. And my thought there was 35 feet in height was a little tall too. So I didn't know I'm not sure we'd want everybody to have 35 foot tall lighting. So we probably want to reduce that down. I don't know what the right size is, maybe 15 to 18 feet or something like that. On that same page on C2B, the small tool or storage cabinet, I thought maybe what we really meant was a storage shed. And that might be a more common term that would be used for that. And then finally on page 3, I just had a question about hot tubs at the top. Hot tubs not involving an enclosing structure were, I guess, exempt. And I didn't know why those would be exempt, but those with an enclosing structure wouldn't be, or would be exempt. Sorry, it wouldn't be, because it seems like both would require plumbing and electrical. And so, I don't know. So hot tubs were a question. I think that's all I had. Maybe the last thing would be de minimis. I might define what de minimis is. those of us who go deep in Latin knew it right away, but ha ha ha, as if I did. I looked it up. But anyway, that might be worth maybe some examples of that would be interesting. Okay, that's mine. Who wants to go next? Richard, you're off mute. Do you want to provide some comments?
Sure. I was a little surprised on page 1, Trevor, and just clarify for me, under B1, the last phrase there, or within 50 feet of the edge of a coastal bluff. I don't recall that that's always been our criteria. Has it been 50 feet? I thought it was a little larger than that.
So, so that is, under Trinidad's exclusion order. So under our current exemptions, it's based on that map as opposed to an actual distance. This is the current Coastal Act regulations is within 50 feet of a bluff. I think what you might be thinking about is the appealable area. So the area that is appealable to the Coastal Commission is within 300 feet of a bluff.
Okay, that's what I was getting to. Okay, all right. So I just an editorial comment on B6. Cheryl mentioned that the improvements result in the replacement of 50% or more of the walls or foundation of a residence. The way I want to make sure I understand this. The way I understand it is you can literally. Okay, I think I just answered my own question. But what I was getting at is that you could take away all of the walls and only leave 50% of the foundation, and that would be exempt. Is that correct? Or is it or and?
I think it's worded or. So I think if you replace 50% or more of the walls or the foundation, it would not be exempt.
That's what I'm saying. So you could literally flatten down to the ground floor, take all the walls away, remove 50% of the foundation, and that is exempt.
No, you'd have to leave 50% of the walls as well.
That's what I'm trying to understand. It was very confusing, so I wanted to make sure. Okay, all right. Yeah, I think Cheryl answered the question about animal husbandry. On the second page, fences. I know that the prevailing thought is that 6 foot is a reasonable fence, and it's exempted anything less than 6 feet. But for Trinidad, with a community that is so tightly knit and so small, I'm wondering if we should not consider reducing the size of those fences to say 5 feet, only in the sense that they do present an obstacle to views in many cases. And I'm not suggesting that, we change it here, but, it's just something to consider, because there's a lot of areas where a 6 foot fence would just literally obliterate views. So just a point there. C2C, television and radio antennas supported on roofs. I get I understand that, and I appreciate that, but I think we have to consider that someone could put up a telescopic antenna frame and with guy wires that is on the roof, and that could extend 60 feet or so. It's not unusual for amateur radios, myself included, radio operators, to be able to, the one to get as high as you can get, and they have antennas that will go very high. So I think that needs some work. Just in and of itself, I understand what they're talking about fundamentally, but I think there may be some additional things that we need to discuss in terms of maximum height size, for example, or limitation on the number of antennas, because you might want to have multiple antennas as well. So that's just another consideration there. The next item, low decks up to 30 inches high, which are not more than 500 square feet in area, and then decks inside fenced areas not visible from the street. I get that. I'm just wondering if there's any consideration of whether or not it is visible from neighboring parcels. Only in the sense that, there's some privacy issues, and there may be some view issues as well. So that I thought was something that we might want to take a look at in a little more detail. On page 3, under item I, this was a little confusing to me because it started out solar heating systems with fixed solar panels not to exceed 180 square feet. First of all, I originally read that as just solar panels altogether. So to me, I wasn't making a distinction between solar heating versus photovoltaic panels. And maybe for solar heating, it's okay at 180 square feet. But I think that if we talk about photovoltaic panels, 180 square feet is maybe too small for someone who wants to go totally off the grid. So that's another consideration. I think we talked about the last time on page 3 down at D3, where the aggregate for maintenance in a 12-month period is $2,000. That's got to go away. There's just no way that happens. I do appreciate the fact that Cheryl asked to put the definition of de minimis in the document. I think that would be very important. There's a number of places in this document, for example, under waivers A to B, where it says construction of a single family dwelling or residential accessory structure that does not have the potential to affect coastal, I'm sorry, I meant to say C, excuse me, C. Landscaping meeting the requirements of. And I assume that there's something else that's going to go there. I just don't know what that reference might be. And there's a couple of places in here where that same thing happens. The other thing I thought would be very useful in this, especially when we talk about waivers and exemptions, exceptions, it might be useful to have some examples of, for example, the last item on page 5, where it says that the de minimis waiver application may be combined with other local discretionary actions. What does that mean? What can you give us an example of what that could be? Since a waiver is not an actual coastal development permit, however, conditions of approval cannot be imposed on the waiver. Maybe some examples would be very helpful for people to understand exactly what we're trying to say here. So those are my comments, aside from the map.
Yeah, the map. Trevor, I'm assuming that if you want to reply to anything, you will. So just otherwise, we'll keep going and we can.
Yeah, I mean, I can, I can respond. Might be easier to sort of respond as each person comments. I think. Some of these comments at this point are somewhat food for thought.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, can we rearrange these improvements to existing single family exemptions so that they're a little bit more clear, so that they flow a little better? Like, here's the exemptions, here's the exceptions. One of my questions on this is how does landscaping fit in? So landscaping is considered part of a single family residence, so improvements to landscaping, but how do any of these exceptions apply? Or does the Coastal Commission consider all landscaping exempt unless it's within, a sensitive habitat area or within 50 feet of a bluff or something like that? So I think maybe landscaping is something we want to clarify a little bit more. These existing exemptions, I think we probably want to get rid of a lot of them. The hot tub one, I think the reason that you can't include a structure is because then it could block views, except that a 500 square foot, 15-foot tall accessory structure is already exempt. So why does a hot tub gazebo matter? It's a lot of these don't really make. These exemptions are terrible. Working with these exemptions has been terrible over the last 20 years. I have to say, I hate them.
Okay.
I mean, the solar panels, great example. It's not even in compliance with current state law. We can't limit your solar panels to 180 square feet. I mean, we can't. So, but I think there's some of them I think are useful, that aren't really clear, fences up to, 4 or 5 feet in height, whatever it is, because that's not really clear is that an improvement to a single family residence? What if you want to bring your 3-foot fence up to 4 feet? Well, that's more than a 10% increase in height. So does that then, so some of these exemptions I like, the small tool sheds, maybe some of the decks, so I do like some of these specific exemptions, but, for the most part, I think it needs a whole overhaul for the most part. And maybe I should just take a first stab at it. But kind of what I was looking for on those are which of these specific exemptions do you think are good to keep? And most of the rest are gonna go away. I mean, do we really need an exemption for curbs? I don't know. Planter boxes?
Right.
I don't know.
So maybe we'll finish the feedback. Trevor, you just take it as food for thought with the idea that you're probably going to scrub this anyway. And as we finish we'll have Commissioner Hopkins, Diane, we'll have Tom and Diane give their thoughts briefly, and then maybe we can come back for a few seconds if anybody has any further thoughts on things that they absolutely would want to keep in here. So, like if there's one or two things that you are critical as exemptions. Does that help, or do you think we should stop now and just let you?
No. I think I welcome feedback that will help me rework these.
Okay. All right. I think Commissioner Hopkins, you had your hand up before Diane, but I'm not sure. Did you want to add something? No.
Go ahead. Yeah, Diane. Okay, I'll go. I agree wholeheartedly with the reworking. I mean, what jumped out at me is the fences. It seemed confusing if it blocked view. I mean, it could be an exemption and it could still block view, and they could say, well, no, I'm allowed to do this. So anyway, and then another one on G on page 3. The external profile of a structure, it says you don't need it if it changes the external profile of a structure. Well, changing a window to a door is the external profile of the structure. I mean, it just seems, that's just jumped out at me. And like alteration of a window size, that definitely, I mean, if it's structural, of course, you need a permit, but maybe just saying smaller, making it smaller is all right, but I did maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I like to hear what you're saying about reworking it, and that's it for me.
All All right, thank you. Diane, did you want to chime in on this one?
So we need to get rid of all the exemptions and all the waivers. They're ridiculous. They're not current. You know, the curbs, the fences, the decks, the porches, they're all going to be seen by neighbors, and they're going to, you know, be in. I just don't see how we can give exemptions. We need to make people get a permit, and this 50% of the walls, I mean, that's like almost new construction.
Oh,
You know?
I wholeheartedly disagree. I'm going to have to wholeheartedly disagree with you on that, Diane. Someone shouldn't have to come to the Planning Commission to build a porch or a deck. It's been an ongoing issue. And we've talked about it before, and the Planning Commission has expressed that with a lot of projects that come to them and say, we shouldn't have to make someone go through this process for this small little project that doesn't affect anyone. And that's really the purpose of the waivers, is that we can do more blanket, less specific exemptions. And then, you know, with a waiver, someone comes in, you know, maybe it needs a permit, but I look at it and I go, oh, you know, you're just, you know, you're adding a roof onto your porch, but it's not in an area of town that's going to affect anybody's views just because someone can see it. I mean, you know, there are, you know, private property rights are also a big thing we have to be cognizant of. You know, where then I can say, oh, this isn't going to affect anybody's views. So, you know, but I still send out notices and it still goes through a process so that if I'm wrong and it does affect someone's views, then they can come and protest that. But there has to be some sort of administrative process where, you know, someone, you know, adding a bay window doesn't have to come to the Planning Commission. It's not efficient.
So are you making the decisions in the office?
That's one option. You know,
or is Eli making the decisions, or is Gabe making the decisions?
No, it would be me. It's usually like the planning director, community development director. And I think there's some potential for both administrative permits and waivers. So I can just blanket issue a permit for some things, and then other things, because the way the waiver is set up right now, it's not that much easier than a coastal development permit because it still has to get reported to the Planning Commission. You know, it's just a shorter staff report. So I'm not super happy with that as the only sort of exception process. You know, so, someone wants to, you know, add, you know, they want to change their pit to 2 new leach lines. Well, that requires a coastal development permit under the current coastal acts. That's not something that's the Planning Commission is really qualified to say, no, we don't like your leach lines in that location. You know, there needs to be some administrative permit process.
Well, I'm okay as long as you're doing the administrative decision because you have the background.
Well, it won't always be me necessarily, though.
So it could be Gabe?
Well, no, it could be my, you know, a future city planner.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. And it wouldn't be the building inspector.
Our day. Sorry, go ahead, Diana.
Okay, so I don't know, in the last, we had, you know, Tom talked about a flow chart. Maybe we could put, I don't know, you can't really see it, but we had, let's see what this was. This was multi-family residential design standards. But anyway, it was an easy flow chart. And so maybe the waivers and the exemptions that are really critical could be put in there, and then we would understand, Trevor, some of these. Because some of them, I think they need a permit because it's getting tight in town, and then we get the ADUs. At least if there's an administrative okay by you or some planner, I'd feel okay. But, the map is ridiculous. And then some of these ideas, for cutting back, I don't know. And they get to do the ADUs. I think it's just an open season now. All right, I'm done.
I think maybe, and we can have, it would add complexity to the ordinance, but we could have separate exemptions from coastal development permits from design review. So those exemptions don't have to be the same. Currently they are. We don't have a process for just a CDP. It's always design review, and the exemptions are basically the same. So that might be one alternative we want to think about as we go through this, that we can have, sure, we get these, maybe this list of CDP exemptions is good enough, but we have a separate, more limited set of exemptions for design review, maybe. And that might be an option.
All right, so this one sounds like it's going to need a little more work. But I think we did a good job of kind of highlighting some of the areas of concern, and we're going to have to double click on it and see what makes sense. All right, so with that, I'm going to open to public comments. If there are any public comments regarding residential permit exemptions and waivers. Yes, Sherry.
Thank you. I do think there's a need for some guidelines and policies around, simple things a homeowner can do without having to come through the permitting process. It's burdensome to have every single thing go through your planning department. I think on this list, there are some things you really do have to consider as permittable. And I do own homes in the city of Trinidad, so I'm speaking as a owner, and I'm trying to replace a bathroom in a house I have right now. Just take the toilet out and the sink out, and I don't want to have to come to a permit for that, and I don't based on this because it doesn't affect the external profile or appearance, and it's just regular maintenance. So I do think that there's a need for such a guideline or a policy that things that are you don't have to come to the city to get a permit. The comment that I really want to make is that think about it from a homeowner view. Make it easy terms to understand. Because it's going to be a person who owns a home and says, can I paint the outside of my house without having a permit? Can I add, whatever, to my yard? So make it as easy as possible for people to understand. And then I think it'll be of great value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. All right. We are at the point in the meeting where I'm going to ask you guys if you, so it's 9:20 where I am, it's 8:20 where you are. So we're about 2 hours and 20 minutes into the meeting. Do you want to continue and do after the fact permit policy? How do you guys feel? Or would you like to try to maybe cover that in the next meeting? Or I think we may be able to go through it fairly quickly, but how's everybody feeling? Or a short break, or what sounds good?
Okay, well, I'll chime in. This is I recognize that this is something that we need to deal with. I'm not necessarily certain that we need to do it tonight. The other thing I would just say is that, again, another editorial comment is that I would also, before we march down the pathway of looking at single family resident exceptions, waivers, et cetera, I think we also need to take a look at the other areas, the commercial and whatever other segments that you were talking about, Trevor, because I feel like we need to see how this puzzle fits together. And not to say that we can't work on this part independently, but at some point I'd like to see all of it so that we can kind of, as I said, look to make sure that it all syncs up. But I'm fine with what we've done tonight, and I appreciate the fact that Cheryl, this is another hour for you. And no,
it's okay. I didn't mean to whine. I'm okay.
That's okay. It's fun to whine.
But no, I really just wanted to check in and see how you guys were doing.
Understand.
Tom?
I would second Richard's, and also Aaron's gone. We've done a lot. It's been a long day.
It's a good point.
Okay. All right. So I think we're going to move that one to the January meeting. And then that moves us then to commissioners' reports. Are there any reports of standing committees that you would like to report? I don't have any. Okay. And then we're at the staff report. Trevor, so back to you.
Yeah, I think the big news, maybe I mentioned it at the last meeting, but it would have been early in the process. The Coastal Commission is offering another round of LCP update grants. Over the last 7 rounds, which is 8 years, they have been able to provide $13.5 million in funding over the last 8 years. This year, this round, they have 31 million because the state's budget. So I'm going to jump on that. The council, it was on consent agenda, but they approved a resolution for submitting a grant for $150,000. And I'm hoping to use that to tie up all the loose ends of the LCP update. So, and get it done. And the grant work can go through 2025. And I think with updating the zoning ordinance and subdivision grading, building ordinances, that we probably, do need that kind of time. So I'm kind of excited about that. And, having the grant will help the city prioritize finishing up that work. So it's, there's a draft. I have changed it around a little bit, but there's a draft task description. It's going to include finishing our informal consultations and formal consultation, and finishing the cultural resources element. And then it's also going to include finishing up the public safety element. So some of that work is going to be done under the OPC grant that's going to start in January, but this will sort of top that off and finish the safety element, which is going to be of big interest to the Coastal Commission. It's going to include a couple of outstanding studies that the Coastal Commission asked us to do, including a visitor serving facilities survey and sort of a build out analysis, which we've done for some things. It's going to include just sort of updating all our reports. So some of them are getting old at this point, and then updating all the ordinances. So that'll be a big chunk. The big chunk of it is to get everything done and hopefully have it ready to be submitted to the Coastal Commission at the end of that. So that I'm excited about. Other than that, I do continue to get applications coming in and inquiries for applications. So you will you will continue, that has not slowed down. So you will continue to see permit applications and approvals coming to you. So you'll probably get at least one, if not two, in January, and they'll continue. So that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. How about next, any future agenda items? All right, I see, oh, Tom? Please.
I mean, without that grant money, any way to get upgrade the website so that it's something that we can all kind of like work from?
I was thinking the exact same thing, Tom, but yeah. Trevor.
That's a good point. You know, it does include some public outreach. So does the OPC grant. So hopefully, yes, we can use some of that grant money to do some upgrades of the website. That would be great.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100%. Thanks for bringing that up, Tom. Diane?
And I agree on that too. With this pandemic and without in-person meetings, we might get, more public input if we had a simplified, whether it's a little flow chart or just an information chart on what's, simple things that would bring people in besides Sherry. Sherry's really concerned, and not only in town, but, in her other areas. And that way we could get other people to come and give their input.
I agree. All right. Any other parting comments? Otherwise, I think we are at the end of our meeting. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Sorry.
I have one comment. I just personally want to thank Cheryl for your hard work and your motivation and drive to keep us going. You've done an excellent job, and I'm counting on you to take that, all your knowledge from our planning commission meetings to the city council and educate them and move them so that, they understand what we've been doing. And I think you can get them to buy in or understand more than what they could do, as a separate group, because they're not here at the meetings. A lot of us will listen to the council meetings, even though I missed last night's because I was at a Christmas gathering or holiday gathering. Anyway, Cheryl, good luck and stay in touch. Okay.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you.
Well, I'll miss you guys. It's been really fun for me. I've really loved these meetings and, gotten a lot out of it, and I've appreciated everybody's hard work and passion. And so it's been really fun. So I'll miss you guys. It was hard. It's kind of hard to leave, but thank you very much, and have a wonderful holiday. And I know we'll talk soon.
Okay. Happy holidays.
Ho, ho, ho.
Happy holidays. See you next year.
Yeah, see you next year. Bye, you guys.
Bye.